which, you know, he had a reputation of being a hard guy on his players.
Oh, Lazat rifles it home, and he's finally rewarded for all the...
The St. Cloud State men's hockey team is coming off of an NCHC sweep against the then top 10 ranked Western Michigan. This week they head on the road to face University of North Dakota and are coming in at #1 in the USCHO.com poll rankings. Welcome into your Husky Hockey Weekend Preview. I'm your host, Madison Golden, and joining me today is Mick Hatten from TheRinkLive.com. Thanks so much for joining us today, Mick.
Thanks for having me, Madison.
And let's talk a little bit about this North Dakota series. What are you expecting to see out of both teams?
Well, you know, for one thing, from North Dakota, I'm expecting a desperate team. I mean, they're in a very tight spot in terms of, you know, the pairwise rankings. They need to make a lot of headway, and St. Cloud State being the top-ranked team in the country, that's where they can make up some ground. So they're playing at home. They need some wins. St. Cloud State has got to battle a little bit of, you know, concern, I guess, about do they come a little bit complacent. They faced the defending national champs and the team that went into last weekend second in the NCHC, and they won 3 of those 4 games. You know, they have to keep that momentum going, and sometimes that can be a little bit difficult on the road, particularly playing against a desperate team.
And then another NCHC series. What makes these series so much more competitive than normal games?
Well, I think it's just the familiarity, you know, with St. Cloud State and North Dakota. When they were in the WCHA, they were travel partners, so they were seeing each other 4 times a season, and it seemed like they'd run into them every season in the playoffs, so they were playing North Dakota an awful lot. These have been 2 of the top teams in the conference over the seasons that the NCHC's been around. So it's always a competitive series when these 2 teams play.
And then we've seen a few injuries for the St. Cloud State Huskies with Kevin Fitzgerald and Jacob Benson being out. How have you seen this team adjust to those?
You know, that was a very tough adjustment because, you know, Fitzgerald, you know, in particular, had been a big offensive spark with 10 goals on the season. You know, and he was kind of filling in on that third line with the 2 Paling brothers. And it was a little bit of a juggling act, in particular that next night, because they both kind of got hurt on the same night up in Duluth. And Brett Larson was able to kind of juggle and move guys around a little bit. And I think last weekend you saw a little bit more of settling in a little bit with a little bit more of a set lineup with Henches, you know, in particular playing center, and Walker being back at center again. So, you know, there's an adjustment period though for those guys because they were playing mostly wing up until that point.
And like you mentioned, Coach Larson did adjust the lines a little bit, and we saw him put the Palings on the same line. What did you think about that? Well,
you know, that's always fun to watch those guys play together, because it's funny because most of the time, you know, guys have to be looking for where somebody's going to be on the ice, and they've played so much together that they really don't have to look a lot of times as to where somebody's going to be in terms of where they need to get the puck to somebody. So it's a lot of fun to watch them work together.
And then both Robbie Jackson and Jimmy Schultz are now members of the Century Club, and Patrick Newell's right on that edge. How crucial have those players been over the last 4 years and this season especially? Well,
they've obviously been massive parts of all the success that St. Cloud State has had. You know, part of a couple of conference championship teams. You know, Schultz, you know, coming back, you know, for his senior season was a big lift for this team. Robbie Jackson has kind of found a way to be, I think, more and more consistent as his career has kind of gone on. And Patrick Newell's having the best season out of his career. So they've been vital cogs to this team and real leaders.
And we saw a couple goals from the freshman class this past series as well. How have they kind of stepped up and become a true part of this team?
Well, Sam Henches, you know, in particular at the beginning of the season, I thought he kind of came out and had a little bit of offensive punch, you know, to begin the season, and then he got a little banged up, and you know, some things. He was a little bit in and out of the lineup because of that. So I think he's kind of getting his stride back now with the position change. You're seeing him make some adjustments. Micah Miller's the guy that I think has kind of come on here in the last 2 weekends in particular, as he's gotten a little bit more ice time and he's found a little bit more consistency with some things that he's been doing. And you're seeing a little bit more of a guy that tied for 10th in the USHL in goals last season. But he did a lot of that in the second half last season in the USHL. So, you know, a lot of times with freshmen, there's a lot of ups and downs because there's a lot of adjustments for them to make. you see this a lot of times. A player gets to Christmas, might be struggling a little bit. Second half, they kind of come on, and maybe that'll be the case for Micah Miller.
And finally, the race for the Penrose Cup is on. What are your predictions for that?
Well, you know, St. Cloud State's really kind of put themselves in command with that series sweep over Western Michigan. Minnesota Duluth is to nobody's surprise, I guess. You know, they're coming off a sweep at Miami to kind of get themselves back on track, and now they're back in second place. But it's a real there's so much separation between St. Cloud State and Duluth right now, though. Really, kind of the battle is between those teams between second and fifth place, and that's where North Dakota is. So those teams are battling for not only home ice, but you know, the field position there for moving forward into the playoffs.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mick. And be sure to watch both games on NCHC.TV. And as always, you can listen to 96.7 FM The River with Husky hockey voice Jim Erickson on the call. Thank you for watching this week's edition of the Weekend Preview.